What is up, guys? Kianpai here. I just max started the new Abyss in 2.3 on the Asia server, so I want to make this video going over some tips and tricks to help you guys max star, as well as some team comp recommendations to help you be able to complete this Abyss with your guys' characters. Alright, start off, I'm not going to do floor 9 and 10 showcase because the monster is the exact same as the previous Abysses, but the Blessing of the Abyssal Moon buff has changed, where when you obtain a crystallized shard, you'll get an extract stack, which will increase your damage dealt by 8% for 10 seconds with a max stack of 3, and when you obtain 3 stacks, the shards you collect afterwards will deal a shockwave that deals true damage, and you can only activate this every 3 seconds. Remember that this Abyssal Moon buff will be changing every Abyss reset, so don't rely on this buff entirely to be able to max out the Abyss. So to begin with, for floor 11, the Leyline Disorder, the buff is going to be that geo and physical damage dealt by all party members will be increased by 60%. Chamber 1 first half will have Rock Shield Mid-Trolls, as well as Hydro and Electro Summa-Trolls, Hilly-Troll Berserkers, Hilly-Trolls with Rock Shields, the Fighters, the Grenadiers for Electro and Pyro, and as well as the Cryo and Pyro Shooters or the Archers. Second half will have the Nobushi, as well as the Treasure Hoarder array of mixture of monsters. Chamber 2 first half will have the Frost Arm Lawatro, as well as Pyro, Cryo, and Hydro Slimes. Second half will have the Kairagi, as well as the Nobushi. And Chamber 3 will have the Hydro Mimics. If you guys are unfamiliar with these ones, these are the monsters that the Oceanid spawns, as well as I'll have Hydro and Anemo Specters. Second half will have Rune Cruisers, Rune Defenders, and Rune Scouts. So for floor 12, the new monsters on Chamber 1 first half are going to be the Electro Rifthounds for the big one and the small one. Second half is going to have the Geo Rifthounds of the big one and the small ones again. Chamber 2 is going to have the Geo Bishops on the first half, and the second half is going to have all 3 Magu Kenki. If you guys remember doing some events, there's the Magu Kenki and then like his like Kage Bunshin shadow clones or whatever you want to call them. And on the first half, it's going to have the Electro Big Rifthound and Rune Cruiser and Rune Defenders. Second half is going to have the Geo Rifthound, as well as the small Geo Rifthounds and then Rune Guards. There will also be no buff to floor 12, so you're going to just deal regular damage with everybody. We're not going to do a crazy in-depth for floor 11 because it should be fairly easy, but for those that do have a little bit of trouble, we will give you guys some tips. The very first tip will be if you guys do have geo or physical characters available that are well built, make sure you guys bring them because they do have a big 60% increase in damage bonus. The other tip I will have is if you guys have Anemo units, definitely bring them. Anemo always makes the Abyss easier, but more so if you only have one Anemo character, try to bring it on the first side in my opinion, because the first side has things that are a lot better to group up, such as the mimics, as well as the slimes, as well as all these mass load of monsters on the first half. All right, so for chamber 1 of the floor 11 first half, you're going to want to fight the melee guys over here first because they're going to target the monoliths, so you're going to want to grab their attention. The archer guys are going to fire at you, so you're going to want to definitely be careful of standing next to the monolith to have the monolith get damage taken. The second wave, you're probably going to want to attack these range guys because the melee guys will attack you, while the bomb throwers will attack the monolith. The third wave, you're just want to kill off the Mid-Troll because he's going to target kind of the monolith slash you unless you grab his attention. Obviously, you can take off the Summa-Trolls as well too. But other than that, you have infinite time to defend and deal this stage. So if you guys bring like freeze or something slow, it's okay. You don't have to like rush killing these guys. Just try to have the damage order or the targeting order done right so that the monolith takes minimal damage. You'll see here we only took 2% damage because we kind of attacked the right people and had good damage to take care of them all. Now for the second half, it's going to spawn all these treasure hoarders. You're going to want to go for the melee ones first because these melee ones are going to target you, while the grenadiers or the bomb throwers are going to target... the melee treasure hoarders are going to target the monolith, and then the grenadiers or the potion throwers, whatever they're called, they'll end up targeting you. So just stay away from the monolith while you do this, and you'll see here I lost 0% health on the monolith itself. Now, this next wave, you're going to want to target the range guys because they're going to try to kill the monolith. You saw their bows point at the monolith. While on the other hand, over here, you'll see these Nobushi are kind of attacking me, at least the melee one. Try not to stand too close to the monolith, otherwise it may take collateral damage. And yeah, we'll proceed to kill off the rest of this one. Now for this third wave, you're going to want to just take care of the range guys again because As you saw there, he threw a potion at the monolith, while the melee guys are kind of going after you. And that'll be all for the entire first chamber. For floor 11, chamber 2, first half, there's not many tips other than the fact that they spawn 4 slimes each, where it's going to spawn 4 pyro slimes on this side, and then on the opposite side, it's going to spawn 4 cryo slimes, and when you kill those cryo slimes off, it's going to spawn 4 hydro slimes, and once those 4 hydro slimes are dead, on the other side, on the back side over here, it's going to spawn the frost lava churl. The only other real tip I have is make sure you bring some pyro units to get rid of the cryo slime shields as well as the frost arm lava churl shield as well too, but also remember that there's pyro slimes, so you can't just rely purely on pyro damage to beat this one. So for chamber 2 second half, you're going to fight these Nobushis. You're going to fight 2 pairs of 3 Nobushi, and they're going to bounce back and forth, where it's going to fight a Nobushi stack here, then a Nobushi stack over here, then 2 Kairagi are going to spawn over here. It's going to be a Pyro and Electro Kairagi. If you guys are unfamiliar with fighting Kairagi, the only real tips I have for fighting Kairagi is that they have to die kind of at the same time. Otherwise, if one Kairagi dies, the other Kairagi will heal unless he's in mid-animation. The other tip I have is if the Kairagi end up blocking, stop attacking that Kairagi because he will infinitely block for the most part until he stops getting attacked. The other tip I have, if you guys want to try to group them together, try to get near the wall and stand still for a hot minute so that they end up grouping up rather than having them fly left and right over and over again. If you guys have trouble dealing damage at the same exact time to them, to kill them both at the same time. Alright, so for floor 11, chamber 3, first half, you're going to end up fighting a bunch of Anemo Spectres and Hydro Spectres at the same time. And then the wave after this one is going to cause you to fight Hydro Mimics. The only tip I have against Spectres is kind of just let them group up together. And also, remember that the Hydro Spectres self-heal. So try to kill them if you can kind of recognize them, which one is the Hydro ones and which one are the Nemo ones. But also at the same time, maybe don't bring a Hydro DPS to this because the Hydro Mimics are immune to Hydro damage and so are the Hydro Spectres. The other tip I do have as well too is be careful when you fight the Hydro Mimics because the Hydro Mimics will come in wave 2 and wave 3 of this fight, and when they do die on some of the bigger ones, they will explode and deal massive damage. So you may want to be careful to kill them all simultaneously if you don't have a shield to protect yourself or the ability to get away from them or outlive them. But also just remember that this is for chamber 3, so if your characters do end up dying, it's not that big of a deal if they die to the explosion, as long as you're able to kill the entire first half in appropriate amount of time. One last tip I have for you guys against the Mimics is be careful using Bennett on this side, because if you see here, I am Pyro infused. When you're inside Bennett's ultimate, your characters have Pyro element afflicted, and if they take Hydro damage, they're going to take 2 times damage from Vaporize. So it can be very painful, especially when they explode on you and you take 2 times, and you'll probably get 1 tapped in 1 shot. For Chamber 3, second half, it's just going to be these 4 Ruin Sentinel, Destroyer, Cruisers, all that kind of stuff. There's not much to be said about this other than just beware that the Rune Defender might block your attacks and the Rune Cruiser might dash away. Luckily, there's only 1 wave, so just do all your burst damage and try to keep them grouped up tightly so you can AoE them down. So if you guys remember, there's a lot of Rifthounds on floor 12, especially Chamber 1 and Chamber 3, so I want to go over this real quick because a lot of people don't know this, but the Rifthounds have a special mechanic. When they deal damage to enemies, they apply corrosion stacks, which cause your entire party to lose continuous HP. So you definitely want to bring a healer on floor 12. You don't want to run like no healer builds with Zhongli and all that kind of stuff. But the bigger one that a lot of people don't know is that when they take elemental damage of their respective element, Electro Rifthound taking electro damage, they'll end up building this rage meter, which when it's finished, they'll end up doing elemental devourer state, which will allow them to fight more fiercely and deal like more damage and all that kind of stuff. But they'll also lose resistance of their respective elements. So if you fill that up with electrical damage for Electro Rifthound, they'll lose electrical resistance. So I did also read that the big Rifthounds have a different elemental resistance loss than the small ones. The big Rifthounds end up losing 65% elemental resistance, something around there, and the small ones lose something around 30% elemental resistance. So if you can, on the first half, bring some electro damage dealers, as well as in the second half, bring some geo damage dealers. Obviously, this is not extremely important, but if you guys are lacking damage, this can definitely help you get faster clear speeds. So for Chamber 1, first half and second half, there's not many tips to be given, but if you guys see above their head, they have this flexing symbol above them and a gauge. That is their gauge to enter their range state, and you see here it's filled out, and when it's filled out, they'll end up leaving out a roar and starting to glow, and they'll end up taking more elemental damage of their respective element, as well as kind of deal more damage in a way as well too. It spawns 3 Rifthounds to begin with, or Whelps to begin with, and then after you kill this wave, it'll spawn 2 Electro Rifthounds that you'll have to deal with. Just also be careful of their ability to dash backwards and kind of teleport around, because you may end up using a skill or a burst skill and missing all of that damage. And be careful of your HP, because those corrosion stacks can build up pretty quickly to end up killing your character. The second half of Chamber 1 will have you fight against a second wave of 2 Whelps and only 1 Geo Rifthound. So that could help you clear faster because Whelps die a lot easier. So you want to definitely be focusing down the big Rifthound instead of killing the Whelps off first, unless you're very worried about corrosion stacks. So for Chamber 2 first half, you're going to fight 2 Geo Bishops. One's going to be a Cryo Geo Bishop on the left side, and one's going to be a Pyro Geo Bishop on the right side. You can always start the chamber and go to one side and beat on the Geo Bishop to kind of push him to the other one. But you can always alternatively go and do a start of the chamber and stay far away from the Geo Bishops. If you stay far away from the Geo Bishops, they'll end up slamming down against you 2 times. One time will have them be neutral, then the second time, they'll end up laying on their backs. Or you can end up doing some sort of AoE, especially a freeze if you guys end up running like Ayaka or Ganyu, or just have some good AoE damage. The other tip is that if you have the ability to bring a shield character, definitely bring one, because if they do this rolling attack and they hit you while you have a shield, they'll end up falling down on their back as well too and getting stunned for free damage. For Chamber 2 second half, it's going to be the one where you're going to fight all 3 Magu Kenki at the same time. It's going to have the original one here as well as the other 2 versions on the sides. The one big thing is that you don't have to kill them all at the same exact time. You can kill them one at a time if you want to make it easier, or you can AoE them all down at the same time. Just be aware that the damage can be very fast with all 3 attacking, so try to keep your eyes on each of them. Same thing also holds true with Bennett. Bennett will infuse your team with Pyro, and as you see here, there's a Frost one here, and if he hits you with a Frost attack while you have your Pyro infusion, you'll take 1.5 times extra damage for that hit. So be very careful with that if you end up bringing Bennett on this side. It can definitely help you to bring a shield character to mitigate damage over here as well too, if you have one. Another great thing as well too is that the Magu Kenki doesn't pause and hold and wait 10 seconds like the previous versions do, so that you end up losing out on time. I do think this one's a little bit easier because the HP that they have is kind of split between 3. But just be careful of all the flurry of attacks coming out there. So for Chamber 3 first half, it's pretty simple. It's going to spawn a Rune Cruiser and a Rune Defender. I suggest you start on the side with the Rune Cruiser, because the Rune Defender will try to go to you while the Rune Cruiser might teleport away from you. So try to AoE them both down if possible, and just be aware once again that the Rune Defender can block your attacks. Once the first wave is gone, it's going to spawn 2 Electro Rifthounds. Just remember the tips from the first chamber, first half, and you'll do fine against the Rifthounds again. Just be careful of their dashes away, dash backs, and teleports. So for Chamber 3 second half, it's going to spawn 2 Whelps as well as 1 big Rifthound to start the first wave. Just take the advice that you had from Chamber 1 second half, and you'll be able to do this one as well too. Just to know that this big Rifthound does have a Geo wave, so be careful of these waves of Geo that come at you. You can obviously dodge them or you can shield through them. Just be careful, because the damage can stack up very quickly for those. After you kill the first wave, it's going to spawn 2 Rune Guards right next to each other, and you guys have probably fought Rune Guards heavily. If not, you guys can always shoot them in the eye with a bow character with a charge shot, and it'll disable them. You have to hit them 2 times to fully disable them. Just be careful of their spin attack, and you should be fine beating this Abyss. So now that we've finished all the tips, let me go into some team comp recommendations. If you guys just want one full team that should be able to very easily beat this entire Abyss, I think using Bennett plus Xiangling plus Kazuha plus Raiden on the first half for floor 11 should be very, very simple. And then using a freeze team like Ayaka, Venti, Mona, and Diona on second half should be very easy as well too. But on floor 12, you should probably switch it around, because the Magu Kenkis will not be able to really be frozen. So you should probably running the freeze team on the first half, and then running the Raiden plus Bennett plus Kazuha plus Xiangling team on the second half. Obviously, you can make changes to this to make it better, but if you just wanted to gear out one set of teams and run it through the entire thing, this is probably one of the easiest ones. The reason why you kind of put Raiden here, other than some other characters, is because the Pyro Slimes on floor 11 Chamber 2 first half would obviously be hard if you ran mono Pyro or put Zhongli in this slot or some other DPS. The main thing you want to be concerned about is when you build teams is to be careful of Bennett on the first half of Chamber 3, Floor 11, because of the Hydro Mimic's explosion. You could take that 2 times damage once again and kill yourselves very easily. You could always swap it around and put the Freeze team on the first half. Just be aware that when you fight against these slimes on Chamber 2, especially the Cryo Slime, it will be immune to cryo damage, so you will have to deal damage with your Nemo and your Hydro character to kill this guy off, which shouldn't be that big of a deal. You can also always run Ganyu as a freeze in place of that Ayaka team, or you can always run Melt Ganyu with Zhongli and Bennett with Xiangling or Kazuha or anything of the sort. Just remember that when you run Melt, you may want to bring a shielder such as Diona on the team to be able to make it so that you don't get knocked. But if you want to go maximum damage, this is a very strong team for high damage output. You can obviously also run Raiden National Team with Raiden, Bennett, Xiangling, and Xingqiu. The only downside to this team comp is that there isn't a Nemo character group people together, but it often doesn't matter because Raiden has pretty big AoE range and so does Xiangling. Now, you could probably use any team that you've used in the past, but the only teams I do want you to be very careful of are teams that kind of revolve around Zhongli and Albedo, or Zhongli as like kind of the main damage mitigator, so you typically don't bring a healer. For example, people that run Zhongli plus Xingqiu plus Sucrose plus Hu Tao might be in a little bit of trouble because of corrosion stacks. Remember that corrosion does affect everybody in the party, albeit being said that the people in the party cannot die, only the person on field can die, so it might be okay for you to do that. But if you guys are at 15% HP and you guys are on your character too long and corrosion ends up killing you, that could be a problem, especially if you go through floor 1 or chamber 1 on floor 12 and get corrosion, then go through chamber 2, then end up on chamber 3 again with corrosion. It could be definitely dangerous. If you end up running something like a Xiao team, like with double Geo, you should probably end up bringing Jean or Sayu as your Nemo battery rather than Sucrose. If you do want to bring Hu Tao, you may want to bring Bennett instead of Zhongli. Also, don't maybe bring Toma to the Hu Tao team because you may want that extra HP healing source. If you don't need it and you're a Giga Chad, then go for it. Just run Hu Tao and Xingqiu as the sole healers for the team. Just remember to mainly be on Hu Tao because Hu Tao can self-heal. Also, if you are going to bring a Eula team such as Eula plus Bennett plus Raiden Shogun and Eula, just be careful of your burst skill missing because a lot of enemies end up teleporting away, dashing back, blocking, things like that. And also that the Ruin monsters do have physical resistance. The bright side though is that the Magu Kenkis don't have HP thresholds where they end up having immunity. You can blow them up if you have a very strong Eula burst. So the last team comp recommendation I want to give is going to be a Geo recommendation, where on floor 12 second half on chamber 1 and chamber 3 there's going to be those Geo Rifthounds which take additional Geo damage, as well as on chamber 2 second half there's those Magu Kenkis which deal a lot of attacks. So those Geo shields like Zhongli shield as well as crystallized shields can definitely keep you alive. You can run something like Zhongli and Albedo with other characters like Xingqiu and Hu Tao, or you could do Xiao plus another Nemo character like Jean, or you could do Bennett plus Xiangling, or you could do triple Geo setups with something like Ningguang or Noel or Ito, and you're probably going to want to cap that off with Bennett so you have a healer so you don't die to corrosion stacks. If you guys are feeling very spicy, you could obviously run quadruple Geo with Goro later down the road if you have constellations, because he does do a bit of healing as well. Alright, that's going to be all for this video. Hopefully it was helpful to you. Make sure you guys leave a like, comment down below what you guys think about this new Abyss. If you guys need more tips and more help, you guys can always follow me on my Twitch channel at twitch.tv/KeonPie to get Abyss help, team recommendations, and account reviews. Make sure you guys subscribe for more Genshin and Gacha content. Join our Discord to be part of our Genshin and Gacha community. Follow me on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok for more content. And I'll catch you guys next time. Peace!